All right. Hello, guys. I think we're live now. Uh, Let me just quickly check to see if we are. Yeah, there I am. How is the signal? All right, perfect. Looks like we're good. Looks like there's a bit of a delay, but everything's good. Okay, so we have an exciting guest today, Altamash. He is a fantastic photographer. I'll get to the introduction very soon. But before we do that, let's roll the intro. All right. So, I'm going to bring up to the main screen right now, Altamash. I would love for you just to introduce yourself, and here he is. You're live.
Hey everyone. It's very strange to be live in a world where everything has been rehearsed already, but here we are. My name is Altamash. I'm a fine art and commercial photographer, and I am based in Dubai. What else do I know?
Amazing. Yeah, so this is my first official interview on this channel, so I'm very excited. I'm not too sure exactly how this is all going to run, if all my tech is going to be working well, but fingers crossed. And yeah, so basically the object is for us just to have a chat and to kind of get an understanding of the business of photography, throw in a bit of education, and just mainly focus on you as well and how you do things. So I mean, let's go back to the beginning, man. How did you first step into photography?
It's a good question because officially it was when I decided to study photography in university, but I've always had cameras around me. Um, I think it's a lot of my father's influence because he was a hobbyist photographer, so he always had a camera bag uh, with at least one Minolta and 3 or 4 lenses, and it would be used every time we would travel together as a family. And eventually, I got pretty excited, and I had always had these little point and shoots. My very first camera was most likely uh, a Ninja Turtle camera, where the photo would have a Ninja Turtle on it on the corner. And then I had an Indiana Jones camera, which would have the Indiana Jones logo on it on the side. So I was always taking pictures, but I didn't realize how much I love photography until I mean, it's a little story, but I was just in my garden and I saw a lizard, and it was like a chameleon basically, and I was like, what? I've never seen one of these before, and it was just so small and far away, and I just had this brilliant idea. I wasn't allowed to really touch my dad's camera, at least at that point in my life. Um, but he wasn't home, so I ran up to his room, opened his cupboard, grabbed the camera, figured out how to change the lens, put in a nice. I think it was like it went up to like 300. Um, the focal length was around 300, and I took a really nice photo of the lizard, and it was just a random roll that was already inside. We're talking film days, and so I took a bunch of photos, and then I put the camera back, and then eventually he got that roll developed, and I honestly just wanted to look at the lizard, and with the zoom lens, I could really get up close and personal. And when I saw that photograph, eventually I was like, whoa! So it kind of got very serious for me. And I was pretty young. I think I was like 13 or 14 when I did that. And then eventually, I moved to Dubai, and I went to AUD, the American University in Dubai, and I always had this idea that I'm gonna study film, maybe become a filmmaker. I love movies, and I still do. But there was no film department in AUD, but there was a photo department and a dark room, and that's kind of how it got serious for me.
Oh, there we go. Press the wrong button there. No,
It happened.
that's incredible. I mean, funny enough, it's a similar story to me, especially with the coming over to Dubai. However, I was actually fortunate enough to go to SAE, where I did study film. But had I done things differently, I probably would have gone to AUD to study photography. Had I known that this would have been my passion.
Yeah,
Plus, I mean,
I
you
understand
kind of
that.
touched on the thing that I really want to talk about as well. Is that you still shoot film,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's incredible.
Obsessively.
Yeah. How do you find it these days?
I can tell you a little bit about my film journey. I mean, I've always loved film, uh, but digital cameras were the rage because that's when it came out, and I cannot tell you how excited I was when I managed to get my hands on a DSLR. It was a massive 6.1 megapixel Konica Minolta where I could use my father's lenses on it. And 6.1 sounds insane right now, but that's where I really made my mark. Uh, until I decided to become a professional. I kept shooting film, but it kind of decreased really fast because once I graduated, like where am I going to develop this and what am I going to do? And the digital world was really taking over. And eventually, I kind of just stopped shooting, and my film cameras were just collecting dust. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I started to really miss the processes of film, and I started to value uh, a lot of things that we can get into right now. Uh, and I started to just force myself to get back into it. I was like, I know how to do this. I just need to get back into it, and I did. And like this photograph that you're showing right now is
Mm.
one of the first times I showed up to a shoot without a digital camera at all. I just didn't have one.
So that was it.
You know?
That was from the
Yeah.
get go. You were like, I'm gonna be filming on film for this. Like that's it.
Yes. And I had to convince the client. I had to tell them I know what I'm doing, and they were not sure. And I said, listen, I have a brand new iPhone. I'll just take photos with my iPhone if you need to, just to make sure. But the advantages of film are innumerable, and I've had these arguments with a lot of friends over the years, because they're like, dude, digital is better in terms of quality, in terms of budget, everything, and I agree fundamentally. But there are the other things that you get with film that you cannot replicate digitally, which is,
A feel.
I can give you an example. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a feel to it. I'll give you an example. Today, my sister was visiting me. I hadn't seen her in a long time. And she said, I need a portrait, please. And I said, of course. And I pull out my film camera, and she's like, what? I need like a portrait for my work. And I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. So what happened was so I was shooting medium format, and I was like, I only have 12 images that I can take today.
Well, that's it. You have to be
And
very
if I
very
had a
selective
digital,
about what you take.
extremely. Like I would frame everything, get ready, and then just not click. I'm like, oh, that's not the shot I want. There's the mindfulness that's created. There's this stillness that is somehow missing in the digital world. Because I'm not
Mm.
kidding. Some of these shoots, all the commercial work, I'd come home, I have 800 shots to go through,
Easy. Easy.
and out of them, five I like.
Yeah.
But if I shoot two rolls of film, there's, if I'm shooting 35 millimeter, it's like two rolls of 36 exposures, and there's five I like. So, so it's a whole different world for me. And there's this, like that, like I said, that mindfulness that is so helpful for me to kind of recalibrate the way I take photographs. It kind of makes you value each click again. It makes you value what you're looking at. You become more present. You become more. You become more still, and you just can't get that with the digital world. You can fake it a little bit. You can force yourself to
You
slow
force
down. You
yourself.
can put
Yeah.
yourself on. Yeah, you can put yourself on a tripod, but you know you're gonna you're not gonna spend time reading the light or studying the light. You're gonna click, look at the screen. Ah, I'll just pick the aperture. Okay, let's go again. Click. So you take about 15 images just testing what you're doing. With the film, the first image, each click costs me money. So I'm not going to just haphazardly bracket everything I want to. I'm going to be very, very selective with how I want to go ahead.
No,
Um,
exactly. I mean, and that's the thing.
and then, like you said, by the way, the feel is very important as well. And I don't want to minimize the quality of grain and the quality of the different types of film. I'm obsessed with expiring film. Like I expire film myself, where I'll buy film and then just leave it in the fridge for 10 years.
Wow.
Then I'll be like, maybe that film is ready now to be explored. And there's this lack of control as well, which I truly, truly love. And this lovely excuse I have when I do it in professional shoots, where I'm like, oh, it's analog, you see, so we don't retouch analog, which is not true. You can retouch anything you want, but it's a way for me to force a bit more natural of a process. I can give you an example. I took a portrait of a very good friend of mine recently, and she had so many demands of whatever she needed. And I said, no problem, of course. It's a professional shoot. She's giving me money. I'd give her what she wants. But then I shot one roll of medium format film as well. And I
Hmm.
gave that to her as a gift. And I said, well, that's the professional images you need, which I've fixed your nose and I've done the skin work you need and the background looks stunning. Here's what it actually happened, please. And I need you to remember, maybe 20 years later, this is what you actually look like. Don't be fooled by that digital retouch, So that's also kind of important. The truth is what I'm trying to capture sometimes. Not always,
Well,
but it's
I
important
mean,
to.
that's exactly it. I mean, you have a lot less. I mean, it's a lot less easier to retouch film. You know.
For sure, for sure. The grain gets in the way. But look, retouching has always been a part of photography since the very beginning.
Mm.
There's retouching in the dark room. There's a lot of work that gets done. I mean, people have been coloring photographs. That's retouching. Cleaning up and all of that. I really looked into the way they retouched in the olden days. Now, my retouching processes on film are as darkroom like as you can get, which is I'm allowed to dodge and burn.
Mm.
I'm allowed to work on contrast, and I'm allowed to work on a few things like that. But beyond that, I'm just sorry, it's film. Like, you can't edit film. So, I mean,
Plus, I mean,
and I
you
scan them
spent.
high resolution. So,
No, exactly, but that's the thing. You get to a certain point of taking this photo, like exactly what you're saying before. You know, you take your time, you take your, you have to look at the light properly, and then you take the shot, and you feel like you're invested a lot more into this photo that you probably don't want to take it into Photoshop and manipulate it to a certain degree because it's something that you have strived for that photo already. Why would you want to really manipulate it further?
exactly. And there's
Yeah.
also this fakeness that comes with kind of adding all these like presets and all of that people do with the digital world. Like this image, for example, that you're showing,
Mm.
I knew I wanted something artsy fartsy. This was I was shooting Kodak Gold 200 from the 1980s that I found in a wedding studio on Jumeirah that was closing down.
Oh wow.
Through a contact, I said, "Hey, they're selling a bunch of random photo equipment," and I go there and I find a bag of film. I'm like, "Hey, when's this from?" And it's not even in a fridge. They're like, "Dude, we don't know. It's from like the late 80s, early 90s." I'm like, "I'll just take the whole bag, thank you." And so I knew it was expired film, and I did one test with it, and I was like, "Oh, it's so grainy and strange," and I still wanted even more. So what I did was, and I was like, the worst idea I could have come up with was I literally opened the camera back to let some light in and I closed it again. It was just a 1 second decision. I was standing there, I'd taken this photo in a bunch, and I was like, man, it would be so cool if there was some weird lighting effect, light leaks, but I don't want to fake it in Photoshop, which I can do. I want it real. And let's ruin this film and see what happens. And I'll shoot two rolls of it. And I'll ruin one and I won't ruin the other and see what happens. And the results I absolutely fell in love with. I got obsessed about. I still do that once in a while where, like, you know what? I'm just gonna whoopsie daisy leak some light here and see what happens. And I have ruined a lot of wonderful images by doing that. But sometimes it's worth the reward. Like, I love these
Sure.
images. I'll never forget them. I mean, the light leaks are weird, strange. Um, but I was not in control of where it happened and how it happened.
Well, that's it. I mean, when
I
you
really appreciate that.
when I remember you saying that you took a digital camera and a film on it. I believe this is actually the shoot that you did that on, isn't it?
This is one of them.
Yeah.
I do it almost. So I do it almost. So this is how I started convincing clients to start letting me shoot only film. Because I
Okay.
would do both. So I have the backup as the digital. You want the crisp studio light anywhere you want, high-end professional. You can put them on a billboard. That's not what you actually need. You need gorgeous images. So I would do both, and I would delay the delivery of the digital images. And then, oh, by the way, here's all the film stuff I did. So if you need to use these, you can go ahead and let me work on that. And I wouldn't even charge them for it, at least initially, because
What's the
also
return
known
rate on that, though?
guarantees.
What's the return rate on
It
that?
really depends.
Yeah.
It really depends on the client. I gotta be honest with you. Some clients just don't get it. Some people are like, "Oh yes, of course, only films." They totally understand the. A lot of people understand the aspect of nostalgia. That's delicious. A lot of people like
Mm.
the hipster vibe, which is not the angle I'm coming from. I am not a hipster in any way whatsoever. Even though people looking at these images might think so. but uh, but it really depends on the client and their own specific needs. A lot of them have luckily started to embrace it more and more. Once they realize that film adds this romance to an image or to a moment that digital is not always there. So it's kind of important to me to always keep pushing it, and I always give the option to every client, especially when it's portraits. Like, I have another idea. I have this gorgeous medium format camera that will create images that will not be created digitally ever. And are you
Amazing.
interested or not? This is how much it
Amazing.
costs. And a lot of them just go, you know what? Let's throw that in there. Why not? Why not? It depends on their budget and depends on my
Of
budget and
course.
my need. A lot of the time, I'm really pulling it out of my own pocket to make it possible. But I'm doing it for myself most of the time.
Ah, you've got that passion for it, and that's kind of what it's all about. And funny enough, that actually brings on to my next conversation piece that I wanted to talk to you about. But before we get into that, I just want to say hey to Mahi Tawfiq. Thomas is in the chat as well, by the way. Saying hey guys. Mahi says, I love what you said about the mindfulness that goes behind taking the right picture from the start. It's almost a meditative state. So yeah, no, it's exactly it. And honestly, for anyone watching live, if you guys have any questions or any comments, feel free to post them. We'll definitely get to them. And we're here, we're watching, so don't worry about that. Done my spiel. So you mentioned like when you approach a client, you kind of get into this state of pitching them another idea. But I'm sure what a lot of, especially new photographers that kind of want to get into the game, getting to that level of confidence is such a hard step, especially trying to build your portfolio and trying to sell yourself effectively. How did you start out with all this? How did you start finding clients to find the work that you wanted to do? Because I know obviously you came from a fine art background. So, I mean, maybe we can talk about your fine art first, coming from a fine art background, because initially that's what you focused on. You did exhibitions for that exclusively. And then only after that did you transition, correct?
Yes, very much so. I had no dreams of commercial photography at all. I had no focus on it while I was studying photography. Uh, I was obsessed with the fine art photography angle, and I thought that's how I'm going to make it. And I was pushing it until I graduated, and I realized, wait a second, I gotta figure out how to pay rent. Uh, and I gotta figure out how to eat. And the fine art was making money, but very slow and long periods of no money coming in. So, I can tell you my very, very first commercial job, I was still a student, and there was somebody asked my professor, "Hey, we need a bunch of photographers to shoot this event," and he just threw my name in there. Somebody who knew who was obsessed with taking images, and I said, "Excellent." So I show up, and there were like 10 other people there, and then there's this huge box of cameras. I'm like, okay, we pick up cameras, all film cameras. All right, that's cool. And then they all have flashes on them. I'm like, excellent. I'm like, all right, so where's the film? They're like, oh, we don't need film. Like, oh, what do you mean we don't need film? They're like, oh, you guys are like decoration. So you have to stand at the end of this red carpet and just flash these people as they're showing up. You're not actually taking pictures here. And I was like, what? I'm a photographer. I can take the pictures. Give me a roll of film.
I can actually
They
do
were
it.
like, yeah, I can do this. They're like, no, this is an ambiance thing. We just want the people coming in to feel like they're important as they're walking to this event. It was very Dubai. This is like 2007, which is before the financial collapse. Everything was grand and enlarged and very interesting. So that was my very first commercial photo job, which was one of the funniest things I've ever done in my life, even now.
And did you actually take
And then-
photos?
No, I didn't have, because they said we are providing cameras, don't bring your own. Okay. And so there was no film. So it was literally like you would load the flash and you would just flash it. You just keep pressing the flash button. There wasn't even a shutter working,
Wow.
I was directing everybody, hey, everybody take your lens caps off so it looks realer. It was a very strange start to my commercial world of photography. And that was such a turn off. I was like, I'm not doing stuff like that ever. I don't want to be a paparazzi person. And eventually, a friend of mine said, hey, there's this company that requires portraits. And I was like, oh, I can do portraits for sure. They just need corporate portraits. I didn't have a digital camera at that moment. I had not got my hands on the 6.1 Minolta yet. So I borrowed a Nikon from a friend, and I didn't even know how to use that damn thing. I'll never forget when I'm standing there and I'm like, where's the aperture button on this? What? But I figured it out really quick. I took those portraits, and that was my first taste of commercialism, where I took these images and I transferred them to the computer. I'm like, I'll make them all black and white. Oh, and I'm gonna do this. And I sent it to them, and I physically went there, and they're like, oh, here you go, and they give me money. I'm like, well, this is really nice. Let's do more of money things. And so what I did was, because like you said, I had no idea how to move towards that actual commercial sector. I immediately went to my professor and I said, hey, you taught me only fine art and I have no clue how to do any of this commercial stuff. So he says, okay, I'm going to give you a number and you call this number. And I call the number, and the number is of a man called Tawfiq Arman. And he was a luxury photographer photographing interiors for hotels. And he needed an assistant. So I became his bitch for about 4 months or so. And he taught me more in those 4 months that I learned in 4 years in university, in terms of light and in terms of commercial angle, how to manage clients, how to stand up for yourself, and how not to be walked over on. And that was a very interesting experience for me. And eventually ended up working with another photographer that he connected me with called Julie Saad, who I started to call my mother goose of photography, because she really took me under her wing. She would do things like just give me like 100 pictures and say, please retouch all of these for me. And I didn't even know how to retouch yet, really. So I learned on the job. She would chastise me when needed, she would encourage me when needed, and she was a great source of basically convincing me that a freelance life is possible at all. And then 2008 happened, and the whole world had a panic attack, except for me, because I was this unknown young guy who wanted to shoot anything you give me. I'm like, I wonder if I can do that. I just started and so what would happen is these massive companies would contact production houses, and then they would see the budget, like we can't afford that anymore. And somehow they end up contacting the university itself. Hey, do you have any recommendations of students who can do this work for us? Right. That's not how it started. I started getting my own clients. I'll never forget it. Like within 2 months of me literally owning a digital camera, that was not Minolta. I got myself a 5D, Canon 5D.
What was it? At that time, it was probably the Mark II, right?
It was just 5D.
Oh, the first one, okay.
The first one, because the Mark II hadn't come out yet. And literally 3 months later, I'm standing on a spider crane, like 80 feet in the air in Abu Dhabi, shooting a massive factory going, this is insane. And I don't know what I'm doing, but I've literally figured it out on the job. And a lot of experiences with imposter syndrome, a lot of experiences with understanding how to put myself in the client's shoes and understanding what they want. It turned out my high levels of empathy really helped me understand what people truly desire, and just start providing them that. And that's what kind of led me to start building up my own confidence. And I realized, man, like it's completely fine if I screw up. I'm just going to do it again and again and again until I don't. And I was very lucky. Very few screw-ups, at least in the first few years. Screw-ups happen much later in life.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to the commercial world. That's when the trouble really starts, when you get really good at it. And that's when you start to truly understand when a photograph needs improvement or a project is like, that's not
When you've already set that
solid.
benchmark, and that's the expectations from then on out. Yeah.
Exactly. So there was a lot of self education involved in truly finding the confidence needed. And it was literally jumping into deep waters almost every chance I got. You say anything to me, and I would say, I think I can do that. I think I can pull that off. And that's why I ended up on a freaking spider crane creating panoramas, and I didn't even know what a panorama was exactly. What's a
Oh wow.
panorama again? Oh, it's when you stitch a bunch of images together. Oh, because we didn't have to do that in a fine art world. In a fine art world, we were really busy discussing concept and conceptuality and symbolism and all those things, which was what all my focus was all about.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I can tell you that the fine art started to suffer as soon as I started to embrace the commercial world, because as soon as I got a taste for fashion, I was like, oh, this is a weird place where I can actually experiment also, and I don't have to have everything perfect until I wanted everything perfect. And then the obsession became with cleanliness. My style changed because I came from a very, very grungy fine art place. And it was almost like a friend of mine once commented, he's like, you're being influenced by the city you're in because the city's obsessed with being clean and shiny and new. And your work from being grungy and strange and analog to becoming very shiny and clean and fresh. And I was like, maybe that's true. And it was a good thing for me because it led me to very strange, massive projects. And I'm still shooting all kinds of strange, massive projects that sometimes I'm like, I have no right to this project. I don't have the experience levels even now. But that's imposter syndrome that never really goes away. You have to talk to yourself and talk to the bully in you and make sure that you are able to be kind to yourself and know your own value. And that's ultimately the only thing I can ever recommend a new photographer coming out, to understand your value and then build it up, build it up. That's what you have to do. And it doesn't matter how bad you are, honestly. It doesn't really matter.
And that's
That's the thing.
exactly it. So I mean, that's really interesting. The fact that you shadowed someone for so long to really help build you up to a certain level, and then obviously you got that kind of little kick from university to really kind of push you out there in the world. But exactly what you were saying about life lessons and on location lessons, you know, I think that's so crucial. I mean, I can speak for myself as well. That's exactly it. You know, you always kind of question, this needs to be perfect. This needs to be my vision. And then you start to understand it's like, no, okay, there are certain requirements that they need that I need to kind of adhere to. And it's almost putting that beginner hot shit attitude and just kind of suppress it a little bit, because I'm sure we've all gone through that, you know, where it's like, yeah, you
Honestly,
hired me.
I didn't
No?
have that. I did not have that feeling starting out. I'd never felt like a hot shit. I never had that confidence. My confidence did not come in selling myself. It came
Mhm.
from selling the photography. That was my confidence. I was like, if the image is good, nothing else matters. Absolutely nothing else matters. So for me, the hot shit didn't feel like hot shit till the delivery was done.
Fair,
So on
fair.
location, I was always, and I try to still be for sure. Like, maybe it comes from the way I was raised, where there is a sense of humbleness to everything you do, where you're not. It's not about you, and it never has been. It's never been about me. I'm not the star. I'm just the one in charge. The star is the product or the client or the person. That's my job to lift them up, and that's kind of the angle I've always been coming from everywhere. Um, I think it's important because once you get that stick up your ass, I don't think it ever goes away. And
Oh,
it, and
you.
it, and I probably have felt it a little bit here and there where I'm like, listen, I know what I'm talking about, you know, but you'll never
Yeah.
hear me say that on a set ever,
No,
ever.
that's
I will
good.
always
That's
listen
exactly
to
what you need.
every single person there. Yeah, yeah, it's a bit
Yeah.
strange, but that's just me, I guess.
No, that's great, honestly. Um, while we're at it, I kind of want to. Sorry, but by the way, hi Sarms Garms. He's up there in the comments as well. There's a little bit of an echo, but Anna says that it's fixed now. So hi Anna, by the way, as well. Yeah, so
Hello.
we're just basically going to be playing this without any background music because I couldn't figure the settings out. But it's okay for me and
That's
you
good.
because
You'll You'll hear my cat meowing in the background instead, which is kind of musical to me at least.
Well, there we go. I mean, so what would you say would be kind of taking everything that you just had kind of said? What would you say is the kind of key aspect that really needs to be kind of honed in? Like, what was your biggest lesson while going through all of that?
To truly understand what's needed for the project. That's all. Because I will always bring my own ideas and my own assumptions, and the client comes with their own. And either you find a way to marry both in a safe place where both people walk away satisfied, or you have to convince your client that you have a better idea that might work, or you bow down to what the client needs. And each time it's different, and every time I speak to a client, you're kind of understanding their expectations. That's kind of the only way to be successful, in my opinion, which is to understand expectations, manage them, and then only deliver what you have promised. And you can over deliver if you want, but never under deliver. And I'll die trying. I'll die trying. It's kind of important.
No, that's
And if I can't,
that's great.
I will find a way to do it no matter what, or I won't take the job in the first place.
There's also that.
That's important, by the way. That's very important to look for red flags. That's something you can't teach the photographer. The new photographer has to learn. The red flags need to be picked up on your own because they're all different. I mean, there's a few I can give you. If the client really doesn't know what they want,
Mm.
that's actually a red flag, because that means they won't be satisfied because they don't know what they're looking for. So you need to tell them what they're looking for instead, and educate them and take care of them and put them under your wing and tell them this is what you should do. You get them to agree before you take a single image. You don't start shooting and then say, hey, how about no? You get them to agree right then and there. There's a lot of life lessons that you pick up through those kinds of interactions. And the red flags eventually become more and more clear. There's so many I can get into, but I won't. But until there's a way to explain it better, because
No,
otherwise
I
we'll
tell
just
you, yeah.
spend. Yeah, otherwise this will be specifically about only all the things that go wrong.
Well, I mean, kind of segueing into that. By the way, Moth Smoke says hello, Alt. Um, yeah. Wakas Khan the sound is great now, so we're good to go. Um,
Awesome.
so coming from your fine art background as well, and this is you kind of somewhat to kind of touched on it there when you were talking about a client sometimes doesn't know what they want. Now, obviously, when you're doing fine art, you are the full captain of the entire shoot. You have to come up with a concept to creation. Do you feel like the knowledge that you've gained from your fine art kind of helps benefit that?
Very much so. I truly believe that they've informed each other in such a lovely way. Where, as mentioned earlier, my fine art suffered a lot as I got deeper and deeper into the commercial world, into the commercial projects where I was spending less and less time. And about 5 years ago, I started to dial it back and try to find a way to balance both worlds again. Because I was like, wait a second, I haven't taken a photograph for myself in so long.
Mm.
So what I've managed to find is this strange balance of, because in the end, I mean, it may seem like fine art is only for you, but there is an audience there as well, and you do need to understand who you're communicating with and what you're trying to communicate. If I came up with my own symbols that made no sense to anybody, my images wouldn't make sense at all. They
Mm.
might make sense to me, I might be satisfied, but if I want something beyond personal satisfaction, I need to consider the audience, consider the environment I'm in, consider uh, how I'm expressing myself. And that I learned through the commercial world, really, and not through the fine art world. The fine art world is where you end up uh, with that hot shit feeling. I know what I'm talking about. This is me, and this is who I am.
Yeah, yeah.
But the commercial world kind of helps me lose that, because in the end, the check comes from another person, and if they're not happy, you won't be happy. Uh, this weird balance I found. The work I make is still I am the client, and I am the one I'm going to satisfy, but I have to keep so many other things in mind.
Sure,
From
yeah.
something as simple as like The last time I had an exhibition, which was not too long ago, I had to spend days arguing with myself if I'm going to frame with glass or not. I'm like, I have to protect the print. This is going to be a high archival print. But I mean, if you stand in front of this art gallery, that you're going to see the reflection of the light onto the print, and this turns me off. So I made the decision for myself, but it was for the benefit of the audience and not me. I would have preferred glass to protect the work. So you do have to think about who you were speaking to in the end, even in the fine art world.
Sure. Actually, I want to throw up a little bit of your fine art work here, and I love this piece, by the way. Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, this is incredible. By the way, Thomas says red flags are the only flags that you get as a beginner in the industry. So true.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah.
I mean, there's an
Just
expression I love is like like when you're new to it, everything you got these rose colored glasses on, you love everything that you see, and there's an expression
yeah.
that's like if you're wearing rose colored glasses, all the red flags just appear like regular flags, and I love that.
Lord. I really like that. I really like that. And understand. And all of us can be blind to it even after all these years. I've been working professionally for more than 13 years now. And literally halfway through a job, I'm like, wait a second. How did I
That's
not pick that up all the way back there in the timeline? It's because there were some rose colored glasses. Maybe the glasses were dollar signs. Maybe the glasses were oh my god, I want to be on that project. Uh, but yeah, absolutely true. Sometimes you do miss out, so you do need to check yourself before you
mm.
wreck yourself, and you need to keep vigilant and keep uh, just be awake and be mindful through all of it. Through all of it. Um, I have a few systems in check now where uh, I don't agree to anything until I've checked the red flags. I'm like, are we gonna get paid here? Is always the first one.
And then yeah,
Are
yeah.
we gonna get paid on time here? Is number two. And are they gonna argue with the money? So you pick up with those all the experiences. You understand like where there's room for negotiation when you're like, oh no, this is not you're not valuing what I am here, so this is not worth my time.
But I mean, that's it. I mean,
In the fine art world, it was different, by the way. In the fine art world, you're not valuing yourself; the art world values you,
and
which
that's
is a
that's
whole
exactly
other
what I
world.
want to touch on. That's exactly what I want to touch on. Is in commercial photography, you get the monetary benefit instantly, and that kind of form of gratification and that kind of reward for your photography. In the art world, it's a lot different than that in the fine art world. So, like for example, what would you do with a photo like this? You put it in an exhibition, and then what happens? Like how did you build a career from fine art photography?
So again, a lot of it is luck based, in my opinion, because I was growing up in a world that was thirsty for fine art photography back then, and there wasn't a lot. So I was getting opportunities that if I was in any other city or country, I wouldn't get as somebody who was practically a student, uh, pretty much, and very fresh. But here, like within 2 years, I was exhibiting in places like Art Space, and like these images were shown in IAM Gallery, So like those are places. If I go there now, they probably won't accept my work, But back then it was very different. So there was this advantage there for me. I forgot your question though. Could you repeat it?
how do you find
Oh,
success
the
in the
value. Yes,
yeah.
the value. So that was always and it still is this very strange world where you are pretending to understand your value in the fine art world. So I decide that this image is going to be worth 10,000 dirhams, and I'm going to sell only 10 editions of it. And then you need to rely on trusted curators and mentors to support that value that you've decided on yourself. And honestly, curators don't get enough credit for how they lift up artists and photographers and make them value themselves, because I could have easily said, no. I'm much more valuable and I need to value this at this level. But the market will say, oh no, not really. You suck. We're not going to pay more than 3,000 dirhams a photograph.
Yeah.
And you don't dictate that price. You can push for it. Well, ultimately, it's the gallerists and the curators and the art market that will decide if you're worth it or not. I was very blessed. with some of these images you're showing right now, I applied for a competition, which I'm not sure if it exists anymore. It's called the Sheikh Manal Young Artist Award, and I was one of the winners, and that helped me raise my value up.
Oh,
Uh,
it's incredible, honestly.
and yeah, and then I thought that, oh, maybe competitions is the way to raise your value up, but that's not really true either, because that's a way to make money off artists more than support artists most of the time. There's a fee involved in applying and this and that, and it's a so
Mm.
I don't necessarily believe in that either. I think ultimately the personal fine artist puts value on themselves, and then once you put it out there, you have to see how the art market responds to your work, and
That's
that's pretty
nerve-wracking.
much how you have to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so, very
Yeah.
much so. And there's a lot of rejection involved.
Sure.
I just got rejected for the fourth time in a row from the CEEF Fellowship, which is this emerging artist fellowship in Abu Dhabi, which is very well known here in the Middle East. And so you have to get used to rejection. It's kind of like being an actor, where you keep going to places and they keep saying no, not good enough, or not what we're looking for, and then you have to kind of uh, really have a conversation with your own ego and say, hey, could you handle that? Could you handle that rejection? You're good, right? Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Because I know artists who stopped because they couldn't handle that level of other people deciding who you are and what your value is, and not being able to speak for yourself. Only the
Sure.
art speaks for
I
itself.
mean, it's almost
And the
yeah.
hope is, yeah, go on. I was going to just talk about Van Gogh, and well, or Van Gogh, however you want to pronounce it, where he wasn't able to find his own value during his whole life.
Yeah.
He died a pauper. He died poor man, because he wasn't valued till much later. Now imagine how his ego was, and how much self belief he had to create to continue painting even when he wasn't selling
Yeah,
constantly.
no, 100%.
That's Yeah. And now in the world we live in, there is this need for instant gratification with social media and everything. You won't like I barely post my fine art work on social media. I've been creating constantly for the past 3 years. Barely anything has been seen, because I finally realized, oh, I don't actually care what that world thinks. First, I'll
Mm.
value myself, and then I can give you uh, this very strange idea that somebody gave me. I can tell you who that somebody is. Her name is Sarah Lando. She's a fine art photographer based in Italy. And she said, ultimately, opinions that matter are the ones that you decide matter. So she recommended to me about 6 years ago, make a list of people that you truly trust, their opinion as artists, that you know that they will not speak from a place of ego or speak from a place of commercialism or anything, and they will give you true feedback,
Mm.
honest feedback that applies to you. Those seven people matter. Beyond that, whatever anybody says, who gives a shit? Not at all. And then she said, print that list, laminate it, put it in your wallet. Every time you hear somebody take a shit on your work or on you or compliment you, pull it out and say, well, you're not on the list. So it doesn't matter if you love it or hate it. Thanks. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah,
And I
so
truly
that's a
do
nice way.
prescribe to that. Yeah, I do prescribe to that, where that rejection from Seif, it's no problem. All right, you're looking for something else this year. It's absolutely fine. You know?
On to the next one. Yeah.
Exactly. On to the next one. On to the next fellowship or residency application.
Well, we've actually had a few comments since then.
Let's hear them.
Umer says hi, Altamash, first and foremost. Mehi says now you can do NFTs now to check your value. But we actually have a question now from funny enough, a friend of mine who was on Twitch is now watching me here on YouTube. So first and foremost, thank you very much. He says, sometimes as a creative, it's difficult to know when you have a project, how to start and where to start. And that kind of stifles the work because you won't start without certain things. How do you deal with that? Like, how do you deal with these mini roadblocks that you kind of put up?
So I am a professional procrastinator myself, and I completely understand uh, how hard it is to get going. I was very lucky. I was paying attention at some point, somewhere in a classroom, at some point, and there was a man called Michael Bray who was a painter, and he just said a phrase. He said, when in doubt, shut the fuck up and start working. That was literally what he said to me. And I was just like, and it registered, it filed into my brain as something that's extremely important to understand. That you can come up with a million excuses. You're like, I can't really take that photograph today because I don't have the right background that I want. And I'm going to have to find that background. No, no, no. Shut the fuck up. Take the photo. Oh, my light went off. 1 second. Take the photo and everything will be all right. And everything's going to be all right. And you will find the work through that. You will find your project through that experimentation. Nobody needs to see it. Nobody needs to know. I can give you an example. I felt like I kind of lost my edge on. I was not never a good artist in terms of drawing anyway, but I did work hard at it to be at a certain place where it was kind of decent, but I lost it. And then it was always this idea of I don't know if I can get back into it. And I'm talking like a decade of not doing it. Uh, and then finally I was like, you know what? When in doubt, just do. I got a sketchbook, I got a pen, I started drawing. And then the next step is to create an actual practice. So that's what I truly believe is the true savior and the true difference between a hobbyist and a professional artist. You treat your work as a practice that you actually schedule and you work on. Just the way I do commercial work, where somebody says, "Hey, are you available on the 15th from 8 to 12?" Yes, I am. You do the same thing with your fine art work. You schedule it in and you show up. You show up and you suck if you have to. You do the worst that you can, and that leads to something or the other. If nothing, even the failures itself uh, need to more knowledge and more understanding of yourself and your work. So when in doubt, just do. I did ask Michael Bray to rephrase that because he was literally telling me off because I showed up without an assignment. And he said, "Why?" I'm like, "Because I wasn't sure if I was going to use wood or cardboard." And he was just like, "Shut the fuck up. When in doubt, shut the fuck up and do." And eventually he just started repeating it to me. When in doubt, just do.
It's like a little
And
personal
that's
mantra. Yeah.
yeah, and it stuck with me, and I hope he's out there. I should probably just send him a message and say, I remember what you said,
Mm,
because when in doubt, I just do it. The worst thing that happens is that it sucks completely, and who cares? Com- Doesn't matter. Nobody else is going to see it. The amount of bad photographs I've taken in just the past year is amazing because there's so many lessons in all of them. I mean,
exactly.
so many. I mean, even today, there's a lesson learned that don't trust your pro photo to last you a full hour of of continuous lighting, and maybe invest in an actual continuous light. So, so yeah. So lessons are learned through failure, and when in doubt, just do.
That's beautiful. No, I really love that. I mean, okay, so let's move on to building your portfolio with clients. And we're mainly kind of focusing on your fashion and your portrait work now. When it
Yeah.
comes to um, selling yourself, and we kind of touched on this earlier, but when you've hit a
Yeah.
certain level, how would you go out and find clients nowadays in a market that is a lot more demanding, with there's a lot more people who are photographers in their own rights, and the market's a lot more saturated now. How do you sell yourself for them?
So before I answer that, I will mention that there are many ways to do the same thing. Everybody comes up with their own methods. I came up with my own. That doesn't mean it applies to everybody. It might not work for other people, but at some point, it might have to do with mind frame. I did come from a slacker generation where we kind of want to play cool. We don't want to ever look desperate. We don't want to be like, "Hey, do you have any interesting projects coming up?" For more, it was like, "Hey, this is who I am. You want me or not?" It's kind of like that. So that slacker generation meant that mindset meant that I wouldn't chase. More like I would dangle myself in front of them like a little treat. Like, this is available, this is here. So if I want to work with someone like Louis Vuitton, I'm not going to send them an email saying, "Hi, I have a few ideas for you. I'd love to work with you." Instead, I would share a project with Louis Vuitton. Hey, check this out. Look at what I did. Look, oh, I'm so good, guys. Good Lord, I'm so satisfied. I'm just sharing with you. I'm not asking for anything here, you know?
But you would
And
you
lo
would
and
you would
behold,
cold call clients though, or
not cold call
no?
because the phone is horrifying. I would usually email or be more casual. Meet them in places where I bump into them or ask for coffee here and there. Hey, let's hang out. Let's meet up and see what we're both up to. Besides that, I've also been very lucky where that slacker mentality kind of started to pay off in a way where I didn't have to chase. They started chasing me. Where like what I do is I just look at my phone and say, "Come on, ring. I know somebody's looking for me," and I'm putting it out in the universe that yes, I need work, but I'm not going to go looking for work. I want the work to come to me because that's how I want to be valued. And that also leads to a little bit of control. There's definitely been moments where I see a client that I want to photograph or I want to work with, and I just drop them a DM like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" I'm not saying I'd love to work with you. I'm not saying let's collaborate together because what that does is also bring your perceived value down. Oh, you must be really hungry for work, or you must be really hungry for something, you know. So the way I approach it is, I don't look hungry. I'm really hungry, by the way, but I don't look hungry, and I always look like I'm absolutely fine, and I can live without Louis Vuitton, and I can live without Gucci, and I can live without all of these wonderful local clients that need me all the time. So because I don't look hungry, people assume I'm very comfortable, very busy, therefore very successful. Therefore, they need me so bad, so bad.
All
And
right.
it works. Not always. I have to admit, there have been months where I'm like, well, the phone didn't ring this time, you know. Uh, and then what you do is you remind people that you exist. You remind people that you exist through putting your own personal work out there, sharing your work. You can definitely drop emails like, "Hey, check out these new projects," and "Hey, look at this," and there is no shame in literally saying, "Hey, if you have anything interesting coming up, consider me." Um, I've said that too, but I limit it as much as possible,
Mm.
as much as possible. And it's nothing to do with pride. I have none. It's nothing to do with ego. Absolutely zero. It has more to do with the way I've decided to approach life. And I have to say, it was not mindful. It's just the way I ended up doing things. And I am very aware that the world has changed in the past, even the past 2 years. The market has changed so much
100%.
that now it's absolutely fine. One of my latest clients is a client that I just messaged them and said, "Hey, I really love your Instagram grid." That's all
Mm.
I said. And it starts a conversation, and they ask me for a coffee, and I meet them for a coffee. They like me as a person, and that's what I'm actually end up selling, the experience of me, and the amazing photographs just end up being the symptom of knowing me, and or the side effect or whatever you want to call it. But that's just how I approach it. Honestly, the actual way to do it is to make yourself aware, um, make yourself known, put yourself out there. Uh, like this image you're showing right now. Like I wanted this image on a magazine cover, or one of these projects in a magazine cover, and I was like, I don't know what to do here. Just talk to a magazine, get to know these people and make friends with them, and that's one of the weird things, at least in this part of the world. I've not had enough experience in other places, but I can tell you that there is a strange sense of nepotism involved, where if they like you as a person, you got the job. It doesn't really matter if you're the right person for the job.
Right. Yeah.
But if they like you, and if they like how you work with them and how you take care of them, they will keep coming back, and they will think of you every time they need an image. So just don't vanish forever, and always answer your phone, no matter when they call. Hey, what's up? You know, obviously, take care of yourself and don't be answering phones if you don't want to after 6 p.m. if you want to live a decent life. Um, but yeah, eventually what happens is that people start to value you themselves. Like this image, for example, was for the cover of OK magazine. I didn't contact them. They contacted me and they said, "We want to do the shoot. We want to do it in the desert. Are you up for it?" And I said, "Only if it's going to be on the cover." You know? So then that way I'm valuing myself. And they say, no, actually, it's for an insert. Okay, it's not for me. Sorry. I can recommend somebody else to you if you want, but I'm not doing that. So in their brains, they suddenly put, oh, he's a cover photographer. Oh, he thinks he's that good, and he is that good. So okay. Otherwise, what happens is if you're undervaluing yourself, everybody's going to undervalue you as well.
Sure, sure. I mean, that's it. Is knowing your own self worth in that sense.
Very much so. Very much so. And it can be very hard because self awareness is very difficult. The more of a newbie you are, the more amazing you think your photographs are. Which we like we
Mm.
touched upon earlier. Like you're like, oh my god, this photo is amazing. Look at the sunset and look at all of this. And then
Look what I
you
did
look at
with
that photograph
HDR.
exactly, and oh my lord, HDR. Ugh. My photos with HDR, I hope they don't exist anywhere out there anymore. But yeah, so eventually, as your taste gets more and more refined, your self awareness gets more balanced, and you don't get impressed by your own images. There's this saying I don't remember or at all who said it, but it's like you have to kill your darlings. So you start to like really become aggressive with your own photographs, and start to really understand your own standard of imagery. And once you do, your value is finally know what's good and what isn't, which is so essential in my opinion. If you don't value yourself appropriately, nobody else will. That's pretty much what I was saying.
No, that's incredible advice. I'm just kind of going through these photos here as well, and I know that in 3 photos we're actually going to come up to a shoot that you did with Michelle Rodriguez,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and
That again, I mean, go on. What were you
and yeah, well, I mean, personally, I really want to. So, I mean, this image is great. This was done in the States, correct?
Yes, this is in
Yeah,
Brooklyn, New York.
yeah. You just don't
So
find
how
people like
that
this
image
here.
exists, yeah, how that image exists is because I was in New York and I was just exploring, discovering. I see this person, I sent them a DM and I said, "Hey, I love your Instagram handle," and I really truly did. I wasn't being facetious in any way.
Mm.
Her Instagram handle was the Grunge God. I'm like, I love grunge. I love your Instagram handle. We had a quick conversation, and she's not a professional model. She's a hairstylist. That's her job. She's a hair colorist and stylist. And I said, she said, I'm not a model. I'm like, well, you are to me. So let's meet up. Let me buy you a coffee. Let me buy you a coffee. And
You
that's why it
understood her
exists.
worth.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're good friends and we work together every time I go there. And we even work together when I'm not there, thanks to this new pandemic world and the new ways I make images. Um, but yeah, it's important to kind of just be comfortable with these strange situations. The way this shoot came about is honestly freaking hilarious to me. Because I was doing some fine art stuff. It was what was it called? There was some weird charity event called Shokol Art where you had to produce works including chocolate for some reason, and then you can sell those images for charity, something like that. And it was I don't even remember where it was, but it was like on a rooftop in the DIFC area somewhere.
Hmm.
And I had this lovely little booth where I had a bunch of my fine art work and this chocolate project as well. And I was just hanging out there. And I noticed in the corner, I see this girl struggling because it was kind of windy. She had a mannequin, and the mannequin kept falling over. And I was like, let me go help her out. So I just immediately dropped everything. I went and I spent like 15, 20 minutes just helping her fix her booth and fixing everything. And that person was this influencer slash designer slash many things called Tamara Al Gabani from Saudi.
Hmm.
And all that did was remind her of who I am. We had met a few times here and there. She was a Facebook friend, but we hadn't actually worked together yet. But her name, my name was in her head because I spent 15 minutes just helping her out. And then 24 hours later, she calls me at 1 a.m. at night. I'm like, hey, you have my number. What's up? She says, hey, could you meet me at the Fairmont Hotel tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. She's like, it'll be worth your time. And I got curious. She wouldn't say why. So I show up there, and there was some Hollywood people, some managers there going, hi, we need a photographer. And it was the at the moment, can't remember her name right now. Sarah Bladden, maybe. She was basically uh, one of the showrunners at OK Magazine in the UAE. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, so we've got Michelle Rodriguez flying in tomorrow, and she's agreed to do a shoot, and we want you to do the shoot. And I was like, why me? What has this got to, anything to do with anything? Uh, Long story short, I said yes, of course,
Of
no
course.
question about it, and
Of course.
yeah, and it was a very strange experience where I had to kind of deal with a Hollywood celebrity, which I hadn't at that point yet, and try to understand what they need, how to make them happy. I'll tell you exactly what happens. I show up at 9 a.m. sharp, and I'm very smart, and I break an assistant with me, and she had landed a few hours before, and she was passed out completely. And I was like, "Ooh, okay, so what are we gonna do here?" So I spend the next 4 hours planning the shoot, fixing the lights, deciding locations, doing tests with my assistants, and just hanging out until she wakes up, gets her makeup done. And then she comes and says, "Hey, I know we're supposed to do a 4 hour session here, but I need to leave in about an hour because I want to go skydiving." And anybody on earth at that point would have had a panic attack. But because I had already spent hours and hours visualizing each image, each shot, I was like, we'll be done in 45 minutes. Let's go. You know? And we did. We did. And she liked me so much. By the way, she hired me as her personal photographer for three more little tiny things, which was super fun. I got to hang out with her. And believe it or not, before the Fast and the Furious thing got really big, at least then, I even sat in a fast car with her in one of the Abu Dhabi racetracks or whatever, and we went
Amazing.
around. And so that was like a super little thing. But it was very frustrating because I had to sign an agreement saying those images will never see the light of day. It was for her personal use only.
Mm.
Um, but that was a lot of fun, and we partied. That was a lot of fun too. We went to, I don't remember what club. It was in the Emirates Palace and in Abu Dhabi, and that was super fun as well.
That's
A very
amazing.
strange experience, and it gave me a lot of confidence with dealing with all kinds of people, where I can do things like, standing in a room with, I'm not kidding, way too many people, and Donatella Versace is in front of me, and I'm like, Donatella, can you move to the left? It's no problem, no problem. I can say things like that because I know what I need. I was shooting a very prominent member of the royal family at just an art gallery, and I was just like, please take your mask off, you know and it just works. Like, they just listen to you because you're holding a camera. It's just this weird power you have over people with a
There
camera.
is there is a slight power behind the camera for sure.
There is, that you have to be very, very careful with, because as
Mm.
most of you know, with great power comes great responsibility. So you don't want to abuse your power as a photographer ever. So yeah.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Um. So I think we're gonna go into a few quick fire questions. Um. So mainly, what cameras do you mainly work with? It's probably a question we should probably ask at the beginning, but we're approaching them now.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. Because I honestly don't give cameras importance. I'm not, I don't have gas, right? That's what they call it, gear acquisition syndrome. I do
Hmm.
know what I want, and I do covet certain things. But in general, my aim in photography has always been to remove the camera from the equation as much as possible, especially because I one of my main passions in life is portrait photography. And especially when you're shooting portraits of people that are not professional models, the camera is extremely intimidating. So I'm always trying to get rid of the camera. And it's just me and you. It's just me and you. And the camera is just a paintbrush I have on the side. This is me looking at you. Having said that, obviously, gear is important. I use a 5D Mark IV as my main commercial workhorse. When the opportunity lends it, which is not very often, I do rent a PhaseOne for a medium format digital
Hmm.
experience, which is so delicious and monstrous.
Oh, I
Very
love it.
rarely.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful. Yeah.
it's nuts. It's nuts, and I need to work out more to hang out with that camera more often because this is a monster.
Have you played with the
I also
IQ4 yet? The 150 megapixels.
Yeah, no,
It's
no, not the.
ridiculous.
I don't think that was 150. It was still, that's the IQ was like one. It was like the 46 one, I think. Yeah, but that's
Oh
like, this
yeah.
is too monstrous for me. And I also, by the way, such a strange feeling to make these massive images and then they get shrunk down to 1,000 pixels width, and I'm like, why did we retouch that at all? you know, at all. We should have shrunk it to 1,000 and then retouched it. That could have been more fun. I use the 5D Mark III as well as a backup. In terms of film, I use my main body is the 500, the Hasselblad 500 cm, which is just my favorite machine ever. Um, I use a Nikon FM2 for my 35 millimeter work. I always have a Lomo around. My favorite is always going to be the Holga because it's just hilarious because it's got all these color flashes on them too. The results are always wonderful. I also have a Diana F with a bunch of like a whole Diana kit, which is
Mm.
an amazing Lomo camera, and I love that you can shoot medium format with it as well. So I have more film cameras than digital cameras. I'll tell you what's missing so badly in all of this. I cannot stop thinking about it. Ends up in my Amazon basket, and I have to remove it often.
Well, that was
Which
actually
is I
that. This is
don't
going to be my
have.
next question. What's the one piece of gear you wish you had? So
Oh
please
Lord,
indulge.
I hate admitting it because it's such a. So that's when I would have to fight again and say I'm not a hipster, I swear, but I need a fucking Polaroid camera in my life so bad. And I've tried a bunch over the years. I got that Fuji one and I sold it, and I got the digital Polaroid bipolaroid, which I sold just last year. I just love Polaroids. I really love the instant pleasure it can give you. Uh, it's just something I find phenomenal. And
It's
very soon, very
I
soon.
well for our from my wife and I's wedding, we actually got one of the Polaroid cameras, but we got the I can't remember the exact model of it, but on it it has like all these functions, so you can actually do double exposure with this Polaroid camera.
Yeah.
I've had so much
Was it
fun with that.
black? Was it black one? Was it
Yeah,
dark? I mean,
yeah.
yeah. So it was bipolaroid then. Yeah, I know
I think it
exactly what
might
you're
have been
talking about.
actually. Yeah.
That's yeah. It's bipolaroid. Like Polaroid died and came back to life after being bought, and they have
Oh,
released 2 or 3 new models in the past 3 or 4 years, which have a bit more functionality in them, and
yeah,
they
yeah.
still look film like, and it is film in the end. You're still putting a Polaroid film in there. So I'm not kidding. Like, and it's not doesn't even cost that much. Like in like 1,200 dirhams, you'll have the top of the line Polaroid plus you buy some film as well. It's just that I can't justify it, and I have been very mindful of how I'm spending my money this pandemic at least. So I don't deserve it just yet. But it's there, by the way. It's in the favorites, and sometimes I just leave it in the basket, hoping I'll buy it by mistake someday.
Well, actually,
But it's
funny enough,
coming.
as we've been speaking, my wife just slid a Polaroid underneath the door. I think she wants me to
Pull
show.
it,
So just give me one
pull it
second.
out, and let's see it. Let's see it. This podcast was brought to you by the need for Polaroid. So please send
Let's
us
see if I
both
can get this.
Polaroids.
I don't know if I can focus on
Bring
that.
it closer. There you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
Oh,
Okay. So yeah, so this
I
was actually
see
one
it.
of the
I
double
see it.
exposures that I did.
Yummy.
One of the first ones. But yeah, and
So yummy.
it's just it's stupid. It's a stupid functionality that you can do that on a Polaroid.
Completely.
But I
Yeah,
love it.
completely. Exactly. And that's the one thing. Look, I truly believe as important as all of this is to all of us, I'll never forget. So would suffer a lot from anxiety sometimes during major shoots and like really stress about it. I can't sleep at night because I have to be awake at 6 a.m. And I'll never forget where I was on a set and this weird relaxation came over me because I just realized something. Because everybody was stressed about something. And suddenly my stress just vanished because I realized it's just photos, guys. We're just taking photos. This is just pictures. It's just for fun.
Yeah.
I know it's not for fun and it's about money, it's about this and about marketing and blah, blah, blah. But we're not saving lives here. We're not in a surgery room trying to change the world. We're not doing anything except taking pictures. So once you realize that there's a bit of lightness in photography that you can always embrace, a bit of funny because photography is all about light, but there's also this lightness I've been able to achieve
Mm.
where it's almost not serious. It's almost not serious at all, and that's what brings it the seriousness and the heaviness that you can bring it back. Because if you start to overthink and overanalyze all of those things, you do end up losing yourself a little bit, and it's no fun to be anxious about things like photos. Who gives a shit if the corner is a little bit dark?
All
You know?
right. I found myself stressing on that a few photos where I'm just like, oh, it's not perfect. It's like, just put it out there already. Like you'll
Exactly.
learn that on the next one. Just you'll figure that part that you're a little bit uneven about. Don't waste hours retouching it. Just fix it in the next one. And
Exactly.
that progressive moment of just understanding that it's fun. It's a photograph. Let's just do it. And I like that. In
Yeah.
fact,
There's this fine art aspect that I've been able to apply to all of these things, by the way, which really helps because as a conceptual photographer, I would come up with an idea and I would photograph the idea and then I would put it up on the wall and then the professor would look at it and say, pretty good, but this, and this. I'm like,
mm,
okay. He's like, reshoot. Okay. So imagine spending 4 months shooting the same thing over and over again. uh, you'll have moments where you stop caring. You'll have moments where all that matters is that image. And what happens is that you realize what matters and what doesn't,
yeah,
and what you can let go of and what you can. And you manage your own expectations that way. And you do have to be kind to yourself and your images. I mean, an image could be amazing. And what's bothering you is, man, that finger, the finger should have been a little bit lower. And who cares? It's just a photograph.
yeah. Her knee should
Just a
have been a little
photograph.
bit more
And it's
bent towards the center. She was
Oh
like, what?
God. Yeah. And then obviously there have been moments in my life where I'm like, I can fix this. I can fix this in post. But I
Liquefy.
don't anymore. Yeah, I don't anymore. I don't anymore. I don't touch the liquefy tool. I don't. Not if I can help it, unless I get paid a lot for it. And yeah, but like this is what it looks like. Like I've had people say, no, but I look fat. I'm like, you don't look fat. This is how you're looking at yourself.
Mm,
You look good to me. Now, if you don't like what I'm looking at, that's not my problem. You know. So yeah, you have to let go of a lot of these things in life.
sure, 100%. Uh, Little Acoustic says you definitely need a Polaroid camera. You'd love to see the
Oh
work that you
yeah.
do with it. So there's a.
Oh my God. I will spend way too much money on the film. I did like when I was officially buying it. It goes into the Amazon. And I start buying film. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna shoot at least 4 rolls a shoot, and I want to shoot at least 4 times a month. And suddenly I'm like, well, that's 5,000 dirhams. I'm not doing that, you know. And but yeah, but I know. So that what happens with film is, especially if you get used to shooting digital, and this has happened to me where I'm shooting digital and film at the same time, and then you end up mixing the signals in your head where you just, even with the film, I'm like, what did I just do? So uh it's happened to me a bunch of times where I've overshot on film, which is like,
Oh,
I'm like, the same image, like there's like 12 of the same background. What were you thinking?
oh, it
That's a
hurts a little
lot
bit.
of, it hurts a little bit, but you learned, right? So I think I might be responsible once I get the Polaroid. But there's no guarantees, is what I was actually saying. There's no guarantees. There might be about 50 images of just a cat before anything actually starts going. You know?
um, has speaking of cameras, Hasselblad or Phase is what Thomas is asking.
Well, like I said, it doesn't really matter. But if I had to choose, I still go back to the Hasselblad because I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't exactly know. And there's something about that mystery that I find so delicious. So there's two things about that I find delicious: the mystery of what it will look like, and this forced nostalgia that I do. I'll give you an example. I took some photos for a friend of mine when in October of 2020, and I took a few digitals and I gave her the digitals, and I've made sure she's forgotten that we took some analog images as well. I've had those images since October, and I'm
Mm.
just sitting on. I'm waiting for them to become so old that she forgets what happened that day. She forgets those digital images because they keep going down the grid. They keep going down till you forget what you were wearing. And what'll happen is eventually I will have this feeling. I'm like, you know what? Now's the time. Now's the time to share them. So what I'm doing is I'm forcing nostalgia in a world where there is none left, because we are all about instant gratification where you take a picture, you get to see it that very second, and you get to feel that that serotonin hit in your brain, like, yeah, that's a good photo. But what happens with when you start to value nostalgia again is I'm trying to bring back that old feeling where you have a roll in the corner in your room, like, hey, what's in this? And you don't even know, and you get go and get it developed. It's this weird excitement.
Mm.
I do that for myself mainly, and I'm trying to pass on that feeling to my clients as well. So Hasselblad on film over the phase any day of the week
Well, there it is, Thomas.
because of that feeling. Because of that feeling. I mean, but if I need to photograph some really high end jewelry, I will pick up the PhaseOne first.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, what is one thing that you wish you had known from the beginning of your career, photography career, obviously?
It's a very good question.
The one lesson
One
that
thing
you
I wish
feel like you had learned after all these years that you wish you'd known.
yeah, and I'm still learning it now every day that it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about your work. You need to be happy with it. And it applies to all aspects in life, but it really applies to photography as well. That you can't control other people's thoughts or feelings about your work.
Mm.
So don't even try. uh, just focus on making yourself happy instead, and stop trying to make only others happy. Their happiness has to come through your happiness. I wish I realized that early on, because what happens, especially in the commercial world, is you bend over backwards to make other your client happy, and you hurt yourself in the process, and you're suffering, and your
Mm.
body's hurting, and you didn't get the good rest and sleep and all of that. And I wish I knew that I come first, and only then can I actually deliver the highest quality that I can deliver if I actually come first in that process. I wish I learned that when I was a baby, but I learned that exactly 1 month ago.
Well, it's hey, look, there's better now than never, right?
For sure, for sure.
Um, and I kind of just want to have a final talking point on now. You've achieved a lot commercially in the fine art world, in the commercial world, portrait, all of these. Um, obviously, one thing that you do now, which I'm very curious about, and I would love to know your experience from it, is but now you're doing workshops as well.
Yeah.
Um,
It's such a strange new world for me. But go on, finish your question.
yeah, no, well, that's kind of what I was gonna say. Is like, do you feel like you're still learning things from doing these workshops? And I'm not talking about just how to run a workshop, but I'm saying like even in regards to your own work.
Oh, for sure. So I'll
Mm.
tell you how the workshop thing started. Um, like, I don't remember when, but like 6 7 years ago, somebody approached me and says, I need to learn photography. I'm like, well, good luck, you need to go to these institutions. They're like, no, no, I want to learn from you. I'm like, I'm not a teacher. They're like, yeah, but I want to learn from you. So I said, all right, come over, sat this person down, this is a camera, this is everything. And while I was talking to them, I was like, hey, what's this button do? And I was like, I don't know what this button. I've never noticed it, or I
I've
never
never
cared
needed
about
that
it. And
button.
I was like, yeah, I've never needed it. I'm like, what is it? Oh, it's like the depth of field. Oh, okay, okay. So that kind of started this idea that education flows both ways, no matter what. And then before the pandemic hit, I was like, as amazing it is to be shooting all the time, I do love just hanging out with people and connecting with people. And teaching is a really interesting way to do that. And I really enjoy it. And then by the time the pandemic hit, I'd already come up with a few ideas of things I could do that were very different. Uh, Creative workshops. So obviously, I can teach a workshop how to operate your camera, and I teach that once in a while. Just yesterday morning, I sat a girl down and I explained to her what shutter, ISO, aperture, and white balance is,
Mm.
and I was so happy to see her actually understand these concepts. You know, but um, but I wanted to go further with that. I wanted to bring in my fine art expertise. How to I realized that I had a leg up on most photographers because I was first taught how to think like an artist, and
Mm.
then I self-taught how to be a photographer. So I was finding ways to marry these two things. I've ended up learning so much in the past year and a half or 2 years, developing creative workshops for myself. Uh, and I started taking workshops, which was new for me. because
Okay.
I would never take a workshop because I know what you guys. I'm not going to sit and study like how to shoot a wedding. That's ridiculous because I know how to shoot a wedding. I've shot like 50. I know what
Mm.
to do. You know, uh, but I started to, and obviously there was always this block in my head going, oh, I'm an actual photographer, so I'm not gonna drop a large amount of money to learn photography. That's ridiculous to me, you know. But I found very different ways to learn through workshops. Like if you go to Gulf Photo Plus, they have this huge photo week, very
Mm.
high end, expensive workshops. But on Fridays, for 50 dirhams per class, you get a little taste of those workshops. And what I would do is I would befriend the instructors, get to know them a little bit. This took like I'm talking about like 10 years of me doing this, yeah.
Mm.
And then become very good friends. Ultimately, I got inspired by one of my mentors, Sarah Lando. She's an Italian photographer who runs a photo lab online called the Support Group for Lazy Photographers. And I just started signing up for it every year. Like I've been doing it now for 4 years. And it's just like 2, 3 months where you do whatever you want. And she just gives you these random assignments. And then she also work on a fine art project that overarches about 3 to 5 months, depending on how hard you want to work on it. And what that started to do was give me my own ideas for workshops.
Mm.
One of the
That's good.
first very creative, yeah, one of the first creative ideas I had was when the pandemic hit us hard. Everybody was stuck at home. I was like, man, if can you imagine if somebody lives alone like I do and they got COVID, but they're feeling fine, they're just asymptomatic. What are they gonna do? They go crazy. So I came up with a bunch of assignments for me in case I got COVID and I'm not dying. And then I was like, this is hilarious. And then I approached an institution here called Tashkil and said, hey, I have a ridiculous idea if you're interested. And I pitched it to them, and which culminated into the workshop. What did I call it? The isolation workshop, which
Okay.
is like if you're isolated for 14 days, you need to quarantine. What are you going to do? So all these mini assignments, you know, to help you reconnect with yourself as an artist and a photographer. And so that kind of led, so what would happen is I was giving myself these assignments to keep that fine art thing going, to
Mm.
remember because I wanted to just keep working and just keep doing and not get stuck in just ideas and thoughts. Because continuing production is the way to actually become an artist. You have to keep painting or drawing or photographing, etc. Um, so I was giving myself these assignments, and then I would convert them into workshops and just shop them around. Hey, are you interested in a workshop called Think Like an Artist? Uh, Eventually, an institution will say, "Yeah, sure." And then I just start a workshop at the Sharjah Art Foundation called Shoot from Home, because that was just, you know, for people who don't have access to constant massive studio spaces, you shoot from home. Most people shoot from home. So I just like, let me teach you guys how to build professional studio spaces in anywhere you want, basically. And so that's basically me reevaluating my experience as a photographer and bringing that in. If I'm teaching somebody how to do landscape photography, it won't be necessarily coming from my genuine experience as a photographer. It's just that I know the technical aspects of it, you know. But because I shoot from home so often, I know I can impart a certain amount of wisdom that would be otherwise lacking in most people. So the idea came from, what can I offer that's unique to me?
Mm.
And honestly, I learned so much. Like this shoot from home workshop, I learned all the things I've been doing because you don't mindfully do a lot of them. You know, I didn't know that I spend hours looking at sunlight. I didn't even know that. It was just a habit that I was forming over the years. Like, oh,
Right.
look at how that reflects from here. It's just my brain registers it, but it wasn't mindful. But suddenly during the workshop, I'm like, so what do I actually do when I build a studio? I start to analyze myself,
That's
and what
good.
happens is you end up learning about yourself a lot, and you end up finding little sequences. I'm like, yeah, you know, that's a waste of time. That thing I do there is not efficient. And then you come up with a better way to do it. So ultimately, every workshop I teach, I'm actually teaching myself, and the participants are just lucky people who get to watch me relearn what I've learned mindfully instead.
Well, funny enough, Hazem has actually joined the conversation now, so hello. And he actually asked, "Have you were you ever inspired from your students in your workshop?"
Oh, very much so. Very much so.
Mm.
Like the most random students I've had over the past 2 years at least. And I'm not kidding. Some of them are absolutely brilliant photographers. Uh, uh, I can give you an example. There's this one photographer called Lisa that she came to one of my photo walk workshops. It was just a photo walk, and I just ended up becoming friends with her because she's just such a strange uh, perspective on photography. She's a ballet dancer who quit a ballet dancer and a ballet teacher. So she's a professional teacher for many, many years, and she switches her career over to this. And then for me to look at her perspective, like her perspective on photography and her experiences, I mean, she just traveled through Syria with her husband and then has these gorgeous portraits, and then she gives me a film from Syria from like, that was expired in like 98, and I was like, that's not just learning from a student, that's actually getting things from a student. I'm getting gifts now, so it's like, yeah, so it's a huge advantage. I definitely learned. By the way, even when they ask me the dumbest questions, which you could consider dumb, they're not dumb at all. Like there's no such
No.
thing as dumb, because you realize, wait a second, that is such an interesting way to ask me about Kelvin. I wouldn't think of that. So it kind of makes me reevaluate my understanding of photography constantly. So yeah, yeah, I'm very open to learning on the spot, and you have to make sure that you have your guard down and not be like, no, 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 I know what I'm talking about. No, no, no. The best photographs taken usually in my workshops are by the students and not by me. Like especially all these random photo walks that I end up teaching. I'm going to be teaching a bunch very soon through Tashkil, which is
Mm.
like a trying to add a bit of conceptual angles to photo walk. So I wanted to explore. I've got a problem, an addiction to plants, as you can see. So I wanted to explore the plant life in the UAE, because if you walk anywhere, there's always these random shrubberies and weird things. Like, where are these from? How are they growing in the desert? And then you
Mm.
take a left and you walk into a park, and it's a completely different green situation. So, why go here? Yeah. So before that, I was exploring a whole other thing. I was exploring physical spaces and photo walks. I was exploring like the Shinaga area at one point, and then I was exploring D3 at one point with these students, and they would show me images that I hadn't seen. And I've explored the same space 5 times, but then they show me an image that I didn't. I'm like, and then it teaches me the lesson that, oh, uh, there's no such thing as a good or bad photographer, or more experienced or less experienced photographer. It's just we all have different eyes and we all see things differently. I learned so much from everybody. I'm learning from you right now just by the questions you're asking me. I'm like, I didn't think about that. I didn't think about what the one thing I wish I knew before I knew. you know, that's a good question. I should find a better answer to it.
No, you
But
answered that
yeah, it's
perfectly well. Honestly, it
yeah,
was great.
yeah.
Yeah. In fact, pre this meeting, we were just kind of chatting a bit, and the one thing I did comment on was your plants. And
Yeah.
funny enough, my wife just joined the conversation and said she wanted to ask about the cocoa palm when you joined the call.
Oh,
Yeah, we have
yeah.
we have one as well. I think we have onwards of about 30 plants in our house. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have at least. I don't want to count, because then it might seem like I have like counting bodies almost. You don't want to count
Oh,
bodies. I
my
don't
wife's
want to.
named every plant, so don't worry, it's fine.
Oh, I have lots of names too. Of course, of course.
Yeah,
I've
yeah,
got Jonathan over there, and this is Charlie right here. So there's
yeah.
there's a few names, but the coconut palm was a birthday gift from a very dear friend of mine. It's one of the most random plants you can give as a gift, uh, and it's super fun so far. But my birthday was just a month and a half ago, so we are still getting to know each other.
Well, happy
And
belated birthday.
thank you.
Well, I think that's it coming from for us today. To be honest, I'm just gonna say if you guys like this, please consider subscribing. It helps with the channel as well. Helps with all these things. I'm gonna leave the floor with Altamash right here, just to kind of say anything that he wants to say, if what he's next got going on, um, along with anything that he has enjoyed in his life that he'd just like to teach to you guys. So I'll leave it to you guys, and thank you very much for everyone.
Thanks for joining, everybody, and everybody that I know. Thanks for being there. What's coming up ahead, besides a few top secret commercial projects that I just can't talk about? Uh, there's a lot of workshops coming up. I'm pushing harder on that angle because it's giving me a lot of joy. So whoever's available who wants to join, I'm teaching at least three these conceptual photo walks with Tashkil. One's going to be exploring the parks of Dubai. One's going to be exploring the soil of Dubai, and one is going to be exploring, hopefully, if we get the permits on time, the people who take care of the flora and fauna in Maidan, like the race courses and stuff. Because I had such a strange question to myself, like who takes care of the grass in Maidan where the horses run? And that's led to a workshop that's in the works, and we should be doing that in the middle of January when the weather is good and it's nice to be outdoors. Besides that, I am also pushing hard to start teaching in other aspects in other institutions as well, and I'm very seriously considering just going online with more of my workshops and see where that takes me. So that's kind of the direction I'm at right now. Beyond that, I am very curious about things like NFTs and how to reevaluate and revalue the fine art world. Yeah, I feel like I'm talking to myself suddenly, which is a lot of fun because I do that all the time. So I just won't stop. So,
I'm
Stephen, you
still
might have
here.
to
I'm
interrupt
still
me.
here. In fact,
Yeah, you might have to
here,
interrupt me because I'm just gonna start talking to myself.
here's a good question actually. Before we wrap this up, where can we find the details
Yeah,
about your workshops?
follow me on Instagram. That's for sure.
Yep.
And my link tree will have them coming up, which is the link on my Instagram. But definitely hit me up on Instagram. I will be posting a lot of things on the YouTubes as well,
You can find
and
his
that should
link in
definitely
the description below.
just make
Yeah.
sure you click it, follow it, hit that bell button thing. Uh, hit, there's a bunch of buttons you can press to get more alerts, and then follow my stories, and that's where I announce pretty much everything on Instagram. The stories are what lead you to the dates of any actual exciting workshops coming up. Um,
Amazing.
Beyond that, just keep an eye out. That's it. And I would like to say something to everybody who's following. Thank you so much for the support. And the one thing all of us need as photographers and artists these days is actual support. And I don't mean give us your money, but give us your time and your energy. Give us your comments. If you see a photograph that you like, don't hit like, comment and say that you like it. These are the things that we need to beat the algorithm, because we all get lost uh, in the social media world, at least because we don't prescribe to the same games that most commercial aspects do. I don't post 3 times a day. I post whenever I want, whenever it feels right. So what happens is the Instagram algorithm really pushes people like me down. So support people like me. Doesn't always have to be me. Find other photographers to support. Buy their work if you like it. Um, that's pretty much it. Just like continue the support that you're giving us, basically, through
Couldn't have said that
these
better
weird
myself.
memes.
That
Four
was
words or
beautiful.
more on Instagram. Always 4 words or more.
4 words
Keep the
or
emojis
more.
to yourself. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for everyone that came out. It was a blast. Thank you again to Altamash. He was incredible. And follow my things down, my Instagram for more. And we'll have more of these coming. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.